The sun is shining. The birds are chirping. The tarps are coming off the diamond. The pitchers are warming up their arms. Juan Soto is hitting cock shots in Citi Field. It is time for baseball to return to its glory. In the mainstay, after a long-awaited winter, it is finally time for baseball to come back. As today we will be trying to predict, evaluate all the moves that happened in the off-season, and hopefully we can predict a proper prediction for next season. I will be putting my money where my mouth is at. I'll be putting bet slips here at the end of the video as we'll be going over a couple of odds that I like, and hopefully we can give you some good information on what the season is going to look like. Let's get into it. So let's start in the AL East, and we're going to start with the Birds, the Baltimore Orioles. The Baltimore Birds look interesting this year, I'm not going to lie. After being bounced out of the cards by the Royals last season, they jumped their payroll this offseason by 60 mil. I'm not going to lie, that's a lot of money. But they added Charlie Morton, who may need to learn what the word retire means. I mean, he might be pushing 43 off the top of my head. But they did add Tyler O'Neill, who was top 10 in MVP voting only 4 years ago. He's coming off a solid season with the Boston Red Sox last year. The team made the playoffs last year, and many key pieces are still here, and Cedric Mullins, that's my go. MLB The Show has one of the best swings of all fucking time, no cap. Ynier Cano and Felix Bautista, they're still around, but they lost one of their key aces in Corbin Burns this offseason, leaving a rotation that was already iffy, a little more iffier. But that farm system will always provide for Baltimore, as Gunnar Henderson last year showed us what the fuck he's made of. Holy crap. I won't be surprised if Baltimore's one of those teams that made the playoff last year, but they maybe are 4 or 5 games back of the wild card this year. Just feel like last year was magic, but getting bounced out by the Royals, who again, they may not be that. We'll see that for later. They may not be that good this year, but you know, Baltimore still has a decent squad. They have a nice stadium to hit in, and you know, they could make some moves before the deadline. I believe this is still a win now or win in the future team. Not exactly a win now, but they do have the fruits of a rebuild that they're working on. But you know, it might not be the year for Baltimore this year. Next, let's move on to the Boston Red Sox. The Sox had one of the better off seasons this past winter, adding Alex Bregman, who does have mob ties to Ted Williams, and he may be abusing the green monster like Justin Tucker in a salon with his insane pull to left field. Bregman is a good righty to slide into the lineup behind a top-heavy lefty lineup in Rafael Devers and Jerem Durham. They also added Walker Buehler, who had an amazing World Series, and if he can return to pre-Tommy John, he is a great addition in my opinion. And Garrett Croquet, who if they go with, again, both of these arms, if they can both stay healthy, they are great fucking additions. As they also look to add the OG as the original fucking piss missile arm. Chapman is back, and he's in their bullpen, as their bullpen might need a little more tweaking. They might need a couple more arms, but Red Sox are definitely heading in a good direction. That offense will definitely be crazy this year, but consistency is very important on the Red Sox journey back to the postseason, as last year they had a bumpy ride at the end of the year. So if you want to make it to the postseason, you're going to have to keep winning games consistently, Boston. Now, the Tampa Bay Rays, coming off a losing season, the Rays still look nice even though they may have no home to play in next year. The departure of Willie Adames may not be great, but they filled that shit with Ha-Sung Kim, who may be the better all-around player in my opinion. Rotation last year had a big injury bug, and if they can stay healthy, the team may be able to bounce back with players like Shane McCallahan coming back, and that farm system will always provide reinforcements for them, even if a few of their boys may get into some trouble and may get bounced out of the league. But, you know, the Rays are one of those teams that ever since they may have fumbled their one chance at a ring against the fucking evil empire, taking out Blake Snell, which kind of was the main reason he left. The Rays are always one of those teams who are kind of been competitive in the past decade, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're hovering around a wild card spot at the end of the year. And then we have the O from Toronto, the Blue Jays. It is do or die time in Toronto this season, with much rumor of the team blowing it up last year. They have to put what they have on the table this year, which they have. They brought in Anthony Santander, who was only short of Ohtani and Judge in home runs last season, coming off one of the best seasons of his career. If he can keep it up and not have a slump, I believe he will be an amazing addition to the team. They added Andres Gimenez and his Gold Glove who again, a former Met, might have given him a little too much money, but it's a good piece to have on the team. They didn't give him the money, the Guardians gave him that money, but still, it's a lot of money for a Gold Glover. They may have wasted money though on Max Scherzer in my opinion, but the crackhead may still have a few quality starts back in the tank for him. And it's a contract year for Vladdy Daddy Guerrero, so this team is slumping and it is getting close to the deadline, and it is looking like a losing year for the Blue Jays. I believe everybody's getting shipped off. Vladdy Daddy might be gone. Bo Bichette might be gone. They might trade Santander, even though they spent a whole buttload money on him. But this is big for the Blue Jays. I'd love to see them successful. I've been rooting for them ever since Vladdy Daddy came up. You know, you need to see what's going to go on in the O this year, but it is crucial that the Toronto Blue Jays find some success early this year, or all those key pieces are gone. Game 1 of the World Series. It's the top of the 10th inning, and Aaron Boone has decided to bring in Nestor Cortez. We already know how this shit ends. After taking back shots in the World Series last year, and Juan Soto packing his bags for the team in the better borough, the Yankees might be on one of the meanest streaks ever to start the season, as they brought in old man Paul Goldschmidt, who might not be doing much for the team, but is still a decent bat, and they added the former MVP Cody Bellinger, who will most likely be back in form swinging cock shots in a minor league field. They added Max Fried to what is already a stellar rotation. They put Devin Williams in the pen. They stole him from the Brewers. I don't know how the hell they did that, but that was a very good addition as well. They filled the holes that Soto left. The Bronx Bombers might have re-upped in the right way, but letting Soto go may haunt their dreams. Moving on to the AL Central, we start with the Cleveland Guardians, as Cleveland is stuck in a weird position this year. After making the American League Championship last year, they have let go of heavy spending in Andres Gimenez and Josh Naylor. They re-signed Shane Bieber, who had one of the hottest starts of 2024 last year, and if he can stay healthy and return to form for them, even though he is a little bit older, he will be a crucial ring backer for them. They also added Carlos Santana to replace Josh Naylor. Carlos Santana, I may love you, buddy, but you're 39 years old. He'll need to have a Nelson Cruz-like effort to make that signing worth it, as Josh Naylor is a good bat. And the Guardians have swapped a couple pieces around this year, but with one of the best bullpens in baseball last year, they still could be in a position to make a deep run into the playoffs, but it is not likely.
From missed injections, make a bitch cry like One Direction. See the devil in my reflection, been suffering from this dejection. Smacking tortas in the pit, 600 pounds doing splits. I been this bitch run a blitz, then I give that bitch my kids. I've been smacking off the scripts like this since I was a kid. Miss the hoes I had on kick, we love that gorilla grip. Keep it honest like baby, keep this shit.
Moving on to Detroit. Detroit Tigers are the definition of the fruits of labor, with a long rebuild showing the youth is making strides after upsetting the Stros in the wild card last year. They had Gleyber Torres, who could be the bat that everybody is saying they needed to sign this offseason if he plays like it is 2019. I hate Yankees, but he had a good bat that year and he could return to form. He is still pretty young. They also returned and got Jack Flaherty back, who could help the rotation out a bit, as they gave him up to the Dodgers to give him a ring, but now he's back. And the Tigers are young, they will always have a bright future. They made some damage last year in a very surprising season for them. They're not in the toughest of divisions, so they could make some noise this year, as they have a nice prospect in Trey Sweeney, who might be coming to bring the cock shots and some reinforcements for Detroit. Then we move on to Kansas City, who was one of many pleasant surprises to come out of this division last year, as they will have to keep riding that success of last year to make some noise this year, as the noise did not come over the winter. They re-signed Michael Wacha, which was a nice smart move due to his performance last year. They still have the tools to seize the opportunity in the division that keeps changing positions weekly, as we have saw last season. With no additions leaves the weight of the franchise on their golden knight in shining armor, Bobby Witt Jr., one of the biggest positives to ever come out of Kansas City other than Patrick Mahomes, as they have to hope that keep riding whatever they had in that fucking Gatorade last year. But I don't know if Kansas City does that again this year. And then finally, rounding out the division, we have the Minnesota Twins. Minnesota was one of the hottest teams in baseball last year, with that flaming hot 12-game win streak early on in the season, which was for nothing because they decided they could not breathe anymore, choking away a 95% chance to make the playoffs early in September. The Big Three, or the so-called Big Three of Carlos Correa, Byron Buxton, and Royce Lewis, need to stay on the field to give this team a shot at making the playoffs. as it seems they get injured almost every single day for the amount of money that you're paying them is not worth it. The Twins, again, they're in one of the weakest divisions in baseball, in my opinion. I think anybody is up for grabs here in the AL Central as it's looking pretty open. Finally, the last division, the AL West, the Stros, Houston. This has been the first big shakeup in a while for H-Town, with Bregman and Kyle Tucker heading off for better pastures. They added Isaac Paredes, I wish I could say his name, because his swing might give them some big offense this year, with every home run in his career being hit to left or left center. And that short porch in Minute Maid Park should pay dividends for that man's wallet in a couple years. They also added Christian Walker, who may be able to fill some holes that have prior mentioned, such as Alex Bregman and Kyle Tucker have left. This could be a seamless transition, but with one of the worst farm systems in the league, the Stros dynasty is ticking. And all that cheating is coming back to bite you in the ass. We move on to the Los Angeles Angels, and respectfully, Mike Trout, you should have done the 40-yard dash the second you had the opportunity to, but you re-upped with the Angels and have wasted the prime of one of the best players to ever touch the diamond. Most of their moves this winter were made within the week of the World Series, as they picked up Jorge Soler, who could hit some cock shots for them. They also added old Kenley Jansen to the bullpen, who I don't think will be as much of use, but his MLB The Show card is still 78, so he probably is still nice. Their best addition this offseason could be Yusei Kikuchi, who finished his solid season with the Stros last year with a .93 whip. That's a juicy whip, you know I love me some whip. Yeah, but it really doesn't matter because this team still got swept by the White Sox last year, and the injury bug still seems to plague them, with Anthony Rendon already out for the year, as I believe he's getting hip surgery done on his hippie hip, as that's got to be one of the worst contracts ever given now. I wish the media would cover that more. I believe he's getting like $100 million at least. He's got a bag. And with decent pickups in the offseason, including Travis d'Arnaud, it really depends how healthy this Angel team wants to be, but in my humble opinion as a random YouTuber, this team is going to be fucking garbage. The Oakland, or the Athletics, have ran to Sacramento and finished the waning months of 2024 strong. In spite of what their record says, they have actually spent money by going out and getting Luis Severino, one of the biggest, or the biggest contract in their entire history. Isn't that crazy? They gave it to Luis Severino. That's fucking wild. They also added Jeffrey Springs to well round out their rotation, as it was looking pretty solid for the Athletics. The Athletics are playing the money ball of death, and they will decide their fate this season, as it is really up to them to depend how truly good they want to be. All I know is if Brent Rooker is still heading out there and hitting cock shots, Sacramento will be excited to see this new team inside their area. The area? Is that the Bay Area? The borough? What the is it a borough? What is it? The Seattle Mariners were up next. The definition of come on, do something. Going pretty much silent into the winter night. They re-signed Jorge Polanco, who is not the best answer to a dead offense, but is a decent bat to bring back. They were the fastest team in MLB history to lose a 10-game lead in the division last year, doing it in 24 games. They play in the ballpark that was built to burn offenses to the ground, apparently doing it to themselves in the process. They have one of the best pitching rotations in the league, if not the best, with over half of their games being quality starts. The bats need to come alive for Seattle to march through to the postseason. They have young players, they have decent arms, they have everything you should want in a team. But they play in a cursed stadium in Seattle, where it rains a lot. And to end out the American League, we finish with the World Series winners of 2 years ago, the Texas Rangers. And ladies and gentlemen, the World Series hangover is fucking real. And last year, half the team was too drunk to get back on the field, with injuries galore in Texas. With Jacob deGrom coming back and hopefully staying healthy, they have the modern day GOAT, Jacob DeGoat. So things are looking up in Texas. They added nice bats and Jock Peterson and Jake Berger to the lineup. They also have the Vandy twins possibly stepping up this year for their offense, so that might be something to think about. The division is weaker, with the Stros possibly getting worse and the Mariners refusing to do anything. Texas might be looking to run it back this year, and they might very well be, as Texas has some of the cleanest uniforms I've ever seen in my life. I miss Joey Gallo. Now let's stay on the same coast, but switch leagues. Let's move on to the National League West, and we're starting with the Arizona Diamondbacks. The D-backs could have made the playoffs last year had the Braves and Mets not been so selfish in the last series of the year, splitting it one apiece, sending them both in and leaving the Diamondbacks high and dry. This is a nice excuse for a team that went 28-24 in interdivision play last year. They need to win more games in the division if they want to stop the evil empire before it begins.
Corbin Burns was added to a beautiful rotation already, minus Jordan Montgomery. That is a mess. They replaced the loss of Christian Walker with Josh Naylor, who's coming off some of the best seasons of his career, even if he did slump last year and I believe the year before, but his WAR is still around 1.8 for the past 4 seasons, and he'll always be a decent power bat to have in the lineup. The Diamondbacks had the best offense in the league last year. They are looking solid and are looking to return to the World Series after a crushing loss to the Rangers 2 years ago. Next up is the weakest link of this division, the Colorado Rockies, as I do not have any shame in saying that. There's not much to speak about in the Rockies in a positive light. They've continued to drop payroll but added nothing to the team in return. They're still paying Chris Bryant $27 million until 2028, and I'm unsure any team will bite on a trade for that kind of money. They might be fighting for Chicago for losses in the record books this year, as the Rockies have not won more than 75 games since 2018 or made the playoffs. I pray for you, Colorado, every night and day. It must be rough out there, but I think this is another losing season for you folks. Next, we have the San Francisco Giants, and the Giants are definitely an interesting team coming into the season, only falling 2 games short of 500 last year. They made some interesting moves this offseason, to say the least, inking Justin Verlander to a 1-year contract that couldn't end up being the man that fills the void in the rotation left by Blake Snell. If he can turn the clocks back one more time, he is an old fella, but he's one of the old fellas, the old geezers I got respect for. They also added Willy Adames, who will be a good bat, but a possible hole in the field. The NL West will definitely be competitive this year as it was last year, but the Giants also will have Tyler Fitzgerald coming back and hopefully staying for a full season if he's healthy. They may have taken a few steps back this offseason, letting Blake Snell go, but the Giants always have a good rotation. Not always, they do have a good rotation, and I believe that will keep them in the hunt and should give them a berth in the playoffs. This team has been slugging it out. Wilmer Flores is still, I believe, over a 220, 230 hitter for them, so there's no reason why this Giants team shouldn't play good enough to make those playoffs, as the rest of the division might have got a little weaker. Might be capping though. Up next, the San Diego Padres. The all-in moves of 2022, where the Padres stunned the Dodgers in the playoffs, have come to fruition in the past winter, with the Padres losing Tanner Scott, Jurickson Profar, Kyle Higashioka, that always trips me up, Donovan Solano, Martin Perez, and Ha-Sung Kim this past offseason. Out of all the names that left, they brought back Elias Diaz and brought in Jason Hayward, who is old as fuck, but is still a decent bat, I will not lie. They added Nick Pivetta, who whipped numbers, those whippy whips numbers have been just below league average for the past 2 seasons, but is known to give up the long ball. The Padres still have talent on the roster, and if their core can stay healthy, they will remain competitive in one of the toughest divisions in baseball. But in my humble opinion, I think they are going to take a couple steps back in the record books this year. And then finally, to round out the division, we have the evil empire that might as well may reign supreme. The Los Angeles Dodgers have been making moves this offseason that had people debating the sport. Roki Sasaki, I hope I said his name right, because he may have secured them the World Series alone. This dude looks beyond nice. He dropped 8 strikeouts in the Baseball World Classic and displayed a fastball of over 102 miles per hour, with his breaking stuff moving everywhere. His breaking stuff is just fucking crazy. It moves all over the plate. It cannot be stopped. They also added another Asian stud with Hye-sung, not Ha-Sung Kim, I believe it's Hye-sung Kim, a completely different player from Korea. He has a beautiful swing and has already shown that he can hit MLB talent, hitting in games in both the Dodgers and Padres. I believe they were friendlies. That's probably why the Dodgers picked his ass up. They also kept many important pieces like Kike Hernandez and brought in arms like Kirby Yates, and oh yeah, they brought in fucking Blake Snell. The only negative that can only cost this team will be inking Michael Conforto to a contract. If he gets a ring, life is lost. So I pray for the downfall of the Dodgers like every other fan in the MLB, but it is not looking optimistic that they will not repeat, as this team is just fucking, looks untouchable. Moving on to the NL Central, we'll start with the Cubbies. They had a stagnant offseason, if you can call it one, as they brought in a big bat in Kyle Tucker, who is on a contract year, and the Cubbies will have to put together a good season to keep him around. They also added Ryan Presley, going back to the Stros for more players, and I like to pick up a Presley for the Cubs, who should be reinforcement that the bullpen needs. A rotation led by Shota Amango, who had almost a sub-1 whip last year, will definitely be one to check out throughout the season. There were only 10 games out last year, and the Brewers might have gotten worse this offseason. The division looks prime for the taking for the Cubbies. The Cubbies. Up next, the Cincinnati Reds. The Reds are like me at work on Mondays after NFL Sunday. You never know who's going to show up for them, as the Reds are extremely streaky and need to find some consistency on the field to get them back in the hunt this year. They added Jonathan India and improved their rotation with Brady Singer coming in the offseason. The ceiling is extremely high in Cincinnati, but I doubt they made enough moves this offseason to get them anywhere, even though their field is an easier home run fucking merchant than Yankee Stadium itself. I'm sure the runs batted in numbers will be improved still. The team ain't going nowhere. No wins coming in for you. Up next, the team that the New York Mets might have ended, the Milwaukee Brewers. This organization last year in the wild card, they got knocked out by who? The New York Mets and Big Dick P. They lost 2 pieces of their division crown last year in Willie Adames and Devin Williams. The division is still pretty weak, even though I gave the Cubbies their credit. The Brewers still have pieces on the team that can make a run in a weak division like this one, with William Contreras, who had a 4.9 WAR last year, coming back. Hopefully he slugs a couple more for you. The Brewskis are one of those teams that will always have a chance to make it to the run at the crown, and I'm sure this year will be another year that they make a run at the crown, proving they don't need shit on the team. They just need fucking the Milwaukee Brewers name. And then we got the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pirates got Paul Skenes and a box of scraps. That's pretty much it. If they make it out of August with a winning record, they might be in the twilight zone. I'm not going to lie. The Pirates will likely have the best rotation in baseball this year, with Skenes and Jared Jones being a 1-2 punch of fucking death. The only problem is they spent no money this offseason to give these guys an offense to play behind. Their biggest offseason splash this year was Tommy Pham. The Pirates' success lies in the farm to send up some big bats to the league, and they might get traded even if they play too good, as I don't believe Pittsburgh is doing anything, and I am sorry, urinating trees. Stick to talking about the Steelers. And then finally, rounding out the division, we have the St. Louis Cardinals. The expectation going into the season is the Cardinals are going to blow it up and move Nolan Arenado to continue offloading the cap, as they nearly unloaded $35 million this offseason, but spent none of it. They have the same group of players last year in a losing season, but the division again is one of the most open in the league, and the Cardinals still have a nice rotation. If they come out flat, I'm sure they will push twice as hard to get Arenado out of the building, and I believe the census coming out of the offseason is the Cardinals are going to begin an open tank. But of course, I believe, knowing our world, the second the media or even anybody like me starts saying they will tank, they're going to have a great season, but we got to see how it plays out. Then finally, the last division we will be covering, the NL East, and we start with the Atlanta Braves. The Braves got bounced out in the card in 2 games last year by the Padres. Granted, they were missing Spencer Strider and Ronald Acuna, who should be coming back this year and hopefully better than ever, as they need them. They did depart with Max Fried, Jorge Soler, and old ass Charlie Morton. They did bring in Jerkson Profar, who had a nice season last year, and if he can continue to build on such a year, he will be a good bat to bring in for these Braves. If the Braves can come back healthy after hobbling through the season, they can bring in the boom. As I feel the top 3 teams in this division may be interchangeable this year, but the Braves getting their 2 biggest stars back, hopefully they can run it back in the division. Hopefully not. Let's go Mets. Up next, the Miami Marlins. Miami's definitely burning. They are on fire. They blew it up at the deadline last year, and they may be doing it again this year. They fired the whole organization over the summer, and on top of that, the injury bug is always going on in Miami for some reason. They moved on Jesus Luzardo to a division rival, no less, this offseason, and are most likely tanking it out this year. I imagine that Sandy Alcantara, like the hurricane, Sandy Alcantara, hopefully that was close enough. I believe they move on from him before they have to pay him, as well as Miami is looking to continue just making the people of Florida suffer, I guess. Moving on to the Washington Nationals, the Nats have a very young squad this year, with the trade of Soto somehow paying back, with James Wood looking to take another step out into the light this year for the Nats. Washington Goats Patrick Corbin and Stephen Strasburg are retiring, and the atmosphere in Washington is changing. They have made a move for Nathaniel Lowe, who's a great power bat this offseason, and I believe they should help Washington a little bit out, but they need to play better in the division if they want any chance of making the run this year, as they went 2-11 against the Mets last year. I believe this team didn't get better enough or good or as good as the rest of the other big 3 teams in this division, as it's a very top-heavy NL East this year, as I don't think the Natty Boys are going to be doing anything in it. Up next, the Philadelphia Phillies. Don't run into the fucking mesh, Philly. A rotten rotation was reworked over the summer, bringing in Jesus Luzardo. As if he can stay healthy, he has the 12th best strikeout rate in the league. And I believe his big arm will be a big arm in the rotation in Philly because he has a big arm. Their bullpen is still a problem as they have lost more arms than Jeff Hoffman and Carlos Vestes this offseason, but Philly will always have a boomstick in the fucking lineup. That's what Philly does, they boom. As they had a ridiculous start last year, busting out to a 62-34 record, but injuries and bullpen problems might spell the end of the Phillies' run this year, and I believe they might have sold their souls, every soul in Philadelphia, to get that ring from Patty Mahaffey this past Super Bowl, so I don't like the Phillies' odds this year, but they probably will still somehow find a way to make the playoffs. And saving the best for last. It's all about the Mets, baby. Meet the Mets, all about the Mets. New York. The Mets, after bringing in the best bat in baseball, who the fuck is going to stop the New York Mets? And if we're being honest, themselves. The story of a Mets fan is life as you know it. The team will fall apart. No matter who is on it. Still, they have Soto, Lindor, Big Dick Pete, Nimmo, Mark Vientos, the best pitching staff in baseball. They turned Luis Severino into what looked like the best pitcher of all time, according to the Athletics, as they paid him that much money. Injuries, slumps, or just, I don't know, fucking bullshit will be the fucking death of this team this year, as Frankie Montas is already injured, as Citi Field is a ballpark that will help this team produce offense, but if the team slumps or the injury bug is alive and well again in New York, it won't matter how many home runs Soto hits. The Mets might skip out on the playoffs, as that run last year was fucking magic, and they're missing a couple key pieces. This is not the Grimace Mets no more. This is the Soto Mets. But who am I fucking kidding? It's about the Mets, baby. The Mets. We're going all the way. Give me 1 ring. Give me 2 ring. Give me 3 ring. Give me 4 ring. Give me a fucking 20,000 rings. As long as Juan Soto breathes, we are fucking winning the World Series. So that would leave us looking like this for the playoffs. In the American League, the Yankees would be the 1 seed, Rangers at the 2, Tigers at the 3, Red Sox at the 4, Stros at the 5, Orioles at the 6, and then the Royals rounding it out at the 7. I think that's pretty believable. I'm sure I'm going to get hate, but I think that's pretty believable. And then for the National League, I have the Dodgers at the 1, the Mets at the 2, Cubs at the 3, Diamondbacks at the 4, Braves at the 5, Giants at the 6, and Phillies at the 7. As I think that's also a decent National League a throw-in for teams that are probably going to make it. And if I had to guess the World Series, I'm probably going Rangers-Mets. I think the Mets are going to knock off the Dodgers again. Not again, but they're going to get over the hump this year. They'll be in the World Series. I don't know if they'll win, but I think it's going to be Mets-Rangers. That's my prediction. Now let's go put some money on some teams, folks. So for starters, I'm liking this one already. We have the National League 2025 winner. I love my Metskis, and I do believe this is the team to do it, even just with Soto. Soto carried the Yankees to the fucking World Series last year. Judge didn't do shit, and he judged defenders in my comments. He literally went 0-4 in the fucking World Series. So Game 5, Game 4, Game 3, Game 2, Game 1. So get the fuck out of here with that. But it's plus 600 odds, so a nice $20 bet on the Mets would win you $152 on Fanatics, and I like those odds, so I'm putting that one down. Then for the RBI regular season leader, there's a nice little wager that I might be placing for Juan Soto. As I believe the Mets' biggest problem is knocking runners in, so I feel wherever they place Soto in the lineup will depend where this ends up coming into as a factor. But I believe the Mets always have runners first and third, first and second is every single fucking game, and they never bring him in. But I believe Soto can get up to the plate. I believe there's going to be many RBI opportunities for this man this year. So I like this prop. I believe $20 will get you $360. So that's a nice little bet right there. Then finally, the last prop that I'm going to go in on, one of the biggest doozies, but I'm going to go stick to my guns on my predictions for this year. I believe the Rangers are going to edge the Mets out in the World Series. It could be Yankees-Mets, but I do like the Rangers to make it from the AL. So They have plus 2,000 odds going into the season, so a nice $10 bet could make you some really good money right there. But I'm putting 6 down to win 126, not risking too much of my good earned, hard earned bread on this one. And that's it. Those are all my predictions that will probably all be wrong for the 2025 MLB season. But hey, if I get 1 or 2 right, at least I'm shooting with some sort of percentage there. But what I care about most are my props hitting. Hopefully those betties hit. But I'm sure we'll be checking back on this eventually, either at the end of the season or midway through the season, about how each team's doing and checking on my outlook for the beginning of the year. But I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Give me a little sub, give me a little like if you did, if you made it this far. And yeah. Eat your vitamins, eat your Flintstone gummies, and listen to your favorite music, gentlemen and gentlewomen. Bye.